Hello everyone, it's my 27th birthday. Happy birthday to me. At 27 years old, I can say I've had 27 jobs and I want to share some of the things that I've learned along the way. So here goes. Job number one, working at Kroger. I was 15 years old. I'm out there in like 100-degree weather in Georgia pushing carts, and I was making $5 something an hour. Then second job, I went right next door and started working at The Loop. It was a pizza grill spot. I then moved on to Taco Bell. When you work at a fast food restaurant, you are fighting against the clock. After those three jobs, I applied for a retail service job at the mall at this store called DTLR, and literally half of my check every 2 weeks would go right back to the store. I was using that employee discount like it was nothing. Big mistake. There was this opportunity at Gwinnett Place Arena where you could work with your family and save up. That sums everything up throughout high school. And I forgot to mention, technically my first job was working with my dad. My dad did not play. He would have us in the attics, 130-degree temperature attics. All right, y'all. I remember at one point my mom was working 3 jobs to help pay for, the bills and helped me and my brother growing up, and one of her jobs was cleaning houses, and so I would go with her and we would be on the floor cleaning toilets, scrubbing floors, and it really showed me like I know I want to get to a point one day where I don't have to work 3 jobs, where I don't have to scrub toilets or clean floors. I want to be able to get to a place where I can work one job or maybe have a couple side hustles, but things that I want to do. So I start college freshman year at Georgia State. They had an opening as like a cook in the back. Mind you, I do not cook. Then winter came around. So long story short, I become Santa's little helper. So I'm taking pictures during winter break, being a cashier at the door. So randomly, my cousin was applying for a job at this new restaurant that was opening, and I tagged along with her. At the time, the manager was like, "Hey, are you looking for a job too?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I am looking for a job." I worked there for about 2 years. It's called Dough Restaurant, and so every day I went in and I gave it my all. I remember my boss at the restaurant one day came up to me and was like, "What do you want to do?" And at the time, I really wanted to work in sports marketing. And he said, "I got a buddy that works for the Falcons." And long story short, that translated to me interviewing with his buddy, and I got hired on as game day staff. But before I got offered the game day gig, I volunteered for events. So, I would drive an hour out, an hour and a half out just to show up, and that's what it takes sometimes. You can't just expect the job to be handed to you. So all of that was from 2008 to 2012. After my sophomore year, I transferred to Georgia Tech. It was kind of a goal of mine. I knew I wanted to go to Georgia Tech. So once I get to Georgia Tech, my boss from my job on campus at Georgia State referred me to her husband who works at Tech. You never know who's watching. You never know who down the line is going to refer you to your next opportunity. Then I worked as a hostess at Raw Sushi in Atlanta. And by that point, I got involved with the women's basketball team at Georgia Tech. And this job right here, this opened so many doors and opportunities. I became the head student manager. So I got to travel to Europe, Puerto Rico, across the country with this team and grow with this team. So then that led to an opening calling games on radio. I got an email randomly about becoming a Georgia Tech note taker. So 3 years later, I'm graduating from Georgia Tech and I'm looking for, that right gig. Well, the Atlanta Falcons has this opening for the seasonal event marketing position, and I was just like, and I got to work 6 months alongside some of the best in the business. I enjoyed working games, but I knew there was something else. I was interested in telling stories, and so that ended up leading to me going to grad school, and I needed like some type of side gig in the meantime. I know, here I go with my side gigs. And so there's this restaurant in Atlanta, it's called Le Bel Bouquet, and they needed a team of baristas. I ain't never been a barista in my life, but I was gonna be a barista that day. Sometimes in life, you take on jobs and you don't know everything, but you learn, and you grow. So then I go off to grad school in Chicago, and I needed a little bit of extra income on the side. The man that worked in my position for the Falcons years ago was now working for the Chicago Bears. And so my colleagues and my managers put me in touch with him, and that ends up turning into me working as game day staff for the Bears. And it's not just asking, and taking. What can you give? How can you help? How can you contribute to staff, to the game day team to whatever team it is. So while I was getting my master's, I also worked with the Northwestern broadcast operations team. Another opportunity that came across while I was in grad school was freelancing at the Democratic National Convention with AP. My mentor became the president of the Atlanta Dream, and there was an opportunity there, and she had known my work ethic from Georgia Tech because we had worked together there, and I worked as a special assistant as well as a team reporter. On the side of that, I was working as an extra. Another opportunity that came up was working for the Falcons as a game day photographer. This was for the event marketing department. It was the last year in the Georgia Dome, so for me it was kind of a big blessing, you know, to be able to be a part of that final season in the Georgia Dome. So I'm still not working in news for real, you know, and so one of my good friends noticed that, and next thing you know, she's like, well, here you go. She passes me a card, which I still have in my wallet, and she's like, give this lady a call. She's expecting your call. Basically, there was a 6-month trainee position open at Fox 5 Atlanta. Again, I'm 26 years old at this point doing a trainee program, taking a leap of faith, you know, thinking I could get a full-time job somewhere else, or I could get this 6-month trainee experience in my hometown, working at a top 10 market, and being able to tell stories in a community I'm so passionate about, learn from some of the best anchors and reporters out there. So that all leads me to where I am today, working in my first full-time job at the age of 27. Technically, I got the job when I was 26. 4 months later, here I am working in Southern Illinois, and I think all those jobs that have led me to this point have taught me, you know, whatever it is that you're doing, you give your all. Whether you're bagging groceries, whether you are stuffing tacos, whether you are pulling shoe boxes, whether you're, you know, calling games for college basketball. If you switch career paths, don't feel discouraged. You know, every job matters. Another thing all these jobs gave me were people, friendships. Every job, I can say I walked away knowing someone that impacted my life. So if you've worked a job or if you had multiple jobs and you feel like sharing, I want to hear. Let me know what's your favorite job, what's your least favorite job, what you learned from your jobs. Happy birthday to me, and thanks for tuning in. I hope you took something away from this, and if you didn't, sorry for wasting your time. So, ciao!